When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers!
Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Requires new line. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 480p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hi, need a ride? Hop on in. I'm headed to Julia's Trucking Cafe. Come on, let's go. Cool, we made it just in time. Come on, let's go get a seat. Hello and welcome to Julia's Trucking Cafe. I'm Julia, your host. This week we're going to continue talking about current events and the Mid-America Trucking Show and the different speakers that were at the show. Some of the speakers were, of course, DeLorenzo and Mahoney. What they talked about was the ELDs, of course, and that after April 1st, getting an ELD into your truck, that probationary period is over with. After that point, carriers that were caught operating without an ELD will be placed out of service. If this happens, in accordance to Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, CVSA, the out-of-service criteria, it's 10 hours off, just like if you had no logbook at all, said Mr. DeLorenzo, who's director of the FMCSA Office of Compliance and Enforcement. After being placed out of service for 10 hours, drivers will be allowed to travel to their next scheduled stop. But he said they cannot be dispatched again without an ELD. If the driver does begin another trip without first installing an ELD, the driver and the carrier will be subject to another 10 hours off. While the carrier may be cited for a variety of ELD-related violations, the only out-of-service violation will be failure to have the device, DeLorenzo said. The officials also discussed proposed guidance on the use of trucks for personal conveyance, or what we call off-duty driving, or PCing. Short, personal conveyance is PCing is short for that, and how to apply the HOS rules, hours of service rules, to short hauls, their exemption, and for guys that haul agricultural commodities. The ELDs can enable drivers to select a special driving category for PCing, such as driving home or to a restaurant while off duty. If the driver designates that driving time as PCing, those miles are separate from the driver's hours of service compliance. While the current guidelines state that moving a laden vehicle, now for those of you that don't know what laden means, it means with a load, that you have a load in your trailer, cannot count as PC or personal conveyance. The FMCSA recently published a revision that would eliminate that distinction and focus instead on the purpose of the movement. FMCSA has also published proposed guidance aimed at clarifying an HOS exemption, hours of service exemption, for agriculture haulers operating within a 150-mile radius of the source of the commodities. So grain haulers, bean haulers, potato haulers, those kind of things from the fields, 150-mile radius is how I'm reading this. Again, this show is my opinion. Under this proposal, the regular 11 hours to drive within a 14-hour day under the hours of service would begin at 0 at the moment the driver exits or goes further than a 150-mile perimeter, regardless of how long the driver had been operating within the 150-mile radius. So you're driving all day and you're only going about 150 miles out, but in case you have that grain bin is full and you have to go 200 miles out, then that hours of service, as soon as you cross a 150-mile mark at 151 miles, that would start at 0. It would count the 200 miles out, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, count the 200 miles out, or the extra 50, I should say, and then the 50 miles back to the field. DiLorenzo also addressed the issue of unassigned miles, which he said is becoming one of the biggest headaches that carriers are experiencing with the ELDs. A common source of unassigned miles is vehicle moves by personnel such as mechanics, maintenance technicians. Now, from my understanding, I have been running an ELD for the last 5 years, and when you go, your truck is in the shop, and you are to log out. And if they need to move the truck, then it would be unassigned, or they would have a maintenance or mechanic, type of login that they can use at your home shop. Now, if it goes into like a TA or a Kenworth, and Kenworth has to go and test drive the truck, I'm not sure how that would work. Those unassigned miles aren't assigned. They're pushed to the next driver that logs into that system. That driver must either accept or reject those miles, which could create extra administrative work or work for the girls in the office and the back office of the company. He recommended maintenance login, which we're already doing. And a lot of the drivers that have attended this asked questions about several exemptions to the ELD mandate and when would they apply. Short-haul drivers who operate within a 100 air mile radius are exempt, as are drivers who exceed that range doing no more than 8 days in any 30-day period. Also exempt from the ELD rule are drivers of trucks with engines built prior to 2000, before 2000, including later model glider kits equipped with pre-2000 engines. In that case, officers will typically check the tag on the engine to verify its date of manufacture, DiLorenzo said. For these type of ELD exemptions, driver's knowledge and proper documentation can promote smoother roadside inspections. As I said, this year on the Blitz, which will be, I'm repeating myself because last episode I notified you that the Blitz will be June 5th through the 7th this year. They will be focusing on if your truck is equipped with an ELD. If it is, you should have no problem, along with the other safety checks, inspections, air brakes, tires, your windshield, those kind of things, your steering components, everything else, and your lines and electrical system, that kind of thing. But they will be focusing on the ELD. Make sure that you know how to bring up your summary, how to bring up if they want you to fax them your logs, that you know how to go to that tab, because I run a Qualcomm or OmniTrack. You go to that tab and be able to type in their fax number and be able to fax your logs to them for the last 7 days. Be able to know I have a summary tab and a status tab, and my summary tab, it has bars across the different 8 hours before your 30-minute break, your 11-hour rule, your 14-hour rule, and the 70-hour rule. It shows them exactly how many hours I have left. Also be able to see the tab for your graph. If they need to look at your graph, how to move back and forth from today to yesterday to the day before. A lot of older DOT officers just likes to see the graph. Be able to show them your previous 8 days so they could see how many hours and if you're in violation, because they're not just going to be taking the word of your status page or your summary page that how many hours you have left in the 70. Some officials are very savvy with the ELDs now. They have been going to training. They have been learning a lot. The Keep Trucking app. There's a bunch of different apps out there. And the OmniTrax, Qualcomm, make sure you know how to access those different things backwards and forwards. So if you're pulled in, they ask to see your e-log, that you could take down your keyboard or screen and you can punch up whatever they need. Also, there's also a card that you need to have with you, that with the instructions for the officer on how to access each one of those features. You have to have that card with you at all times in a spot where you can reach it without getting out of your seat. Again, that is a ticket if you do not have that instructional card to tell them how to use the ELD. Make sure that you have it within reach, that you can reach it either in the side pocket of your door or if you have a cubby hole up above your head. That's the two best places I would recommend to have this ELD card, instructional card for the officers. Now on to another speaker that was at the Mid-America Trucking Show was Mr. Ray Martinez. He is the assistant director to the FMCSA, and he wanted to, in his first official grassroots outreach, he appeared at the Mid-America Trucking Show. He wanted to have a 90-minute listening session, and he was not passionately and often loudly accused of ignoring the fate of most independent owner-operators, small fleet drivers. He says he was insulted personally for answering some of their questions like a politician. He says he came to the FMCSA from a motor vehicle background of being commissioner of New York and New Jersey. Those are, as we know, if you have spent any time out here, those are the two biggest regulated states in this country, is New York and New Jersey. I hope he loosens up his reins a little bit, being administrator to the FMCSA. He told a group of about 200 truckers that showed up to this forum that he's used to not being the most favorite person in the room. He quietly listened, and he didn't make any promises about changing any guidelines or anything. He says, I can't change the law. I'm not Congress. But he might be able to make changes to the regulations if they're outdated or if they don't make any sense. People, at least he's coming out here. He's going on tour, what he calls a listening tour, to listen to our complaints. I'm embarrassed at any truck drivers that were heckling him, yelling at him, accusing him of talking like a politician. Of course, he's in Washington. He's going to sound a little bit like a politician. Come on, guys. But he's still a human being. Your behavior in front of him is embarrassing to the rest of us good drivers. You had 2 or 3 or 4 or half a dozen of y'all grab the microphone and think you're all that. I'm sorry, you're not. Okay, we're all trying to do a job. We're supposed to be family out here. We all have complaints about the ELDs. It's not the ELDs. It's the hours of service regulations. Let's get rid of the 30-minute rule. Let's try to stop the 14-hour clock. Having an ELD in the truck actually is a lot easier because you don't have to keep track of your miles. Have you ever thought about it? State to state to state for the fuel tax is what I'm trying to spit out, sorry. And you don't have to do that anymore. You hit a button, you hit a radio button, on duty, fueling, 10, 15 minutes. Like I said, I've been running it 5 years. You can manipulate the ELD if you want to, if you're savvy enough to do it. I have a computer background, so I could turn around and manipulate it a little bit. I go 10 minutes when I'm unloading, loading, off duty the rest of the time. That's saving my 70 at the end of the week, just like you would on a logbook. It has a graph, just like it does on a logbook. It's an electronic version of a logbook, guys. It's the hours of service regulation, Mr. Martinez is right, that needs to be changed. Not tossing out the ELDs. Because if your paper logbook gets wet, it really stinks that you have to go back a month and try to figure out what the hell you did. Really? And where did you fuel? And you have to have the receipts and match everything up, because we all know that DOT, all they got to do is they can bring up your fuel card at any doggone truck stop in the country and see exactly the time you fueled, where you fueled, and everything else. And then figure out the miles from that point to the scale, and they'll still get you out of service. So you don't have to do any of that with the ELD. He was only in office for 4 weeks when you guys pounced on him, and he realized that, like I said, the ELD isn't the issue. That the issue is the hours of service. We may have some latitude to look at our regulations and see if there are things that we can do with regard to the hours of service. He agreed that us waiting at the docks creates inefficiency and said that somebody's trying to pick your pocket. The ELDs help spotlight these problems. These problems show up because of the ELDs. That's where they're gathering all the data. Some of the drivers, because the ELD exemptions were given to agricultural haulers and some large carriers, the agency was picking winners and losers. Wah, wah, wah. Quit your damn whining. Okay, they're picking on all the big boys. They're picking on the ones that they're lobbying him in D.C. I doubt it. I really do doubt it. Do you want dead chickens? Do you want dead cows being delivered to the slaughterhouse because they had to stop for a 10-hour break and couldn't get the cows there on time? Besides losing weight and everything, the cows losing weight? That's inhumane. That's animal cruelty. Do you really want that? There has to be some kind of a exemption to the HOS rules, hours of service rule, for livestock haulers and grain haulers. So with all the confusion, he says, that the ELD mandate is created for both the drivers and law enforcement, what's the point? Another driver asked DiLorenzo. Why can't we just stay on paper logs? Why is getting an ELD even necessary? DiLorenzo replied that the reason for the ELD is that Congress decided they're better than paper. I think we all have to be honest about this, and this is about the hours of service. Everybody likes paper because they didn't like the hours of service. So if you don't like the hours of service, you can make the paperwork the way you want. But you can't make it the way you want with an ELD. You can't change the drive line or anything with the ELD. Martinez said that truck drivers today came by our booth and said, well, this is what we want to hear. This is not about shaking your fist and saying you're not listening to us. We're here listening to you, and give me a suggestion. One driver said there's no one at FMCSA that has been a truck driver. It's amazing to me how many experts there are in trucking that have never set their butt in a truck. But you won't listen to us. We are the experts, the trucker said. In an interview after the session, Martinez said such contentious meetings are no stranger to him. This is exactly what he wanted to hear. He wants to hear from the owner-operators what issues are out there. And there's a way to build some flexibility here. The ELDs are not going away, but we can look at the issue of hours of service and we can make it more fair. So, guys, you have to at least give the man a chance. Like I said, he's still a month now, month and a half. So, let him do his work. Now, in another topic regarding the hours of service, I found an article where a senator, I believe it was, let me pull up the article real quick, be just 1 second, lawmaker out of Texas has introduced legislation that would modernize the hours of service regulations for truck drivers. The bill is known as H.R. 5417, or the Responsible and Effective Standards for Truckers Act, or REST Act. The REST Act would change the current hours of service. It would allow drivers to take one rest break per shift for up to 3 consecutive hours. The single off-duty period would not be counted toward the driver's 14 hours on-duty allowance and would not extend the total 70 hours allowable drive limits. The REST Act requires the Department of Transportation, DOT, to update the hours of service regulations to allow a rest break once per 14-hour duty period for up to 3 consecutive hours, as long as the driver is off-duty, effectively pausing the 14-hour clock. This is what we want, people. So you can, like I'm doing, at a shipper or receiver, if it's taking too long to load or unload, 6 hours. It took me at New Jersey Port Authority 6 hours to get 11 skids loaded on my trailer. I can pause that 14 hours for at least 3 of those hours and go off duty for 3 hours. It'll start clicking after the 3 hours, but at least it paused it. So I can get to a truck stop and I'm not out of service because I'm done with my 14. That gives me that 1, 2, 3 hour window to at least get out of the port, find a place to park, and park it, and then you still have to do a 10-hour break. However, drivers would still need to log 10 consecutive hours off duty before the start of their next work shift. It would also get rid of the existing 30-minute rest break. The bill states that these changes would allow professional drivers to rest when they feel it appropriate and avoid congestion, adverse weather conditions, or other road conditions that decrease safety. And what about if you're not feeling good? You know, you're not completely sick that you can't drive, but there's some days where you're just tired. You didn't sleep good. You had a restless night. I go through that. We're all human. We all go through that. And you tossed and turned all night. You may have family problems, girlfriend problems, wife problems, sons, daughters, moms, somebody. And you just didn't sleep real good, but yet, your 10-hour break is over. You got to get up and get going. You're coming into Baltimore, and there's, a 4-car pileup. You see a rest area. You shoot off into the rest area on 95. You could take that 1 to 3 hour break to let them clean up that accident. And that would pause your 14-hour rule. But you still need to take your 10-hour break at the end of your shift. Babin, who is sponsoring this act, is previously championed legislation to delay the ELD mandate. He says of the REST Act, he's proud to introduce this REST Act and give American truckers the options they need to safely operate under today's rigid federal regulations. This bill is an important step in making the way for improved highway safety. It would also eliminate the existing 30-minute rest break requirement. So let me know. You can always make comments on my Facebook page, Julia's Trucking Cafe. And we also have a discussion group, Julia's Trucking Cafe Regulars. This show airs Monday nights between 6 and 7 p.m. Central Time. And you are always free to call in with your comments at 213-943-3411. Again, that's 213-943-3411. Can't even remember my own phone number. More in the current events of a couple of weeks ago. A Connecticut trooper was killed after rear-ending a slow-moving semi. Connecticut State Police say that one of their troopers was killed on the 29th of March when he collided with a semi-truck on I-84. The crash happened just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon, eastbound on I-84 at exit 68 in Tolland. Police say that 49-year-old trooper Kevin Miller was driving in the right-hand lane of the interstate when he crashed into the rear end of a semi that was traveling at a slower speed than the flow of traffic. Well, people, don't you know that guys on 84 drive 100 mile an hour? So all of us would be moving slower than the flow of traffic. And Officer Miller died as a result of his injuries from the crash. I am sorry to hear that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Lori and Eddie Kuklinski, who are dear friends of mine for over 40 years. We grew up together, went to high school together, and even had kids together. Their daughter has been fighting cancer, Kimberly, for the last 9 years. And Kimberly, didn't call it a war, didn't call it a fight. She always called it a dance. And she went to different cancer centers in Milwaukee, Chicago, and around Wisconsin, where, I'm from. And I'm sorry to say that Kimberly's dance had ended. They laid her to rest this last Thursday, April 5th. So please, light a candle, say a prayer to her. She had a rare form of cancer. Lori and Eddie have been hugely strong through this. I don't know how they could do it to lose, their daughter in such a way. I wanted to give a shout out to them and everybody who is dealing with some sort of cancer, breast cancer, or anything else like that. It is, very sad to, see something like that. I want to thank all of my listeners. Our audience is growing little by little, so keep listening. And like I mentioned before, when the audio gets bad, not every episode is going to be an hour. I allot an hour in case I get on a rant or anything. I'm trying to make this personal. Why I chose the name of Julia's Trucking Cafe is because years ago, us drivers would get together. We would run 15 of us at a time. We'd all converge on one truck stop. Have a big long, put about 2-3 tables together, have like a big long conference table, all sit down and all eat together, swap war stories together, and just share information, road closings, who to work for, who not to work for, different things that happen to them on the road. And that's what I'm trying to bring back. I want this to be like a virtual cafe where you walk in, you sit down, you can share your comments. You're not going to be judged. Nobody's going to ridicule you. Nobody's going to heckle you. And if you do, you're not going to be heard. That's not what this show is about. This show is to teach younger drivers the rules of the road, the way it should be done, common courtesy, professional appearance. Those are some of my huge topics. If you have e-log questions, anything like that. I am trying to get Administrator Martinez, shout out to him, on the show. So, please contact FMCSA, and I would really like to talk with him. So you're more than welcome to post any questions in the comment section. And for Administrator Martinez, that I would really like to have him on the show and discuss the trucking industry, the ELD mandate, the hours of service. What does he think about, the REST Act? Does he think that would help the hours of service problem that we're having? So I appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next time, stay safe out there and keep the shiny side up.
Face it, you're different. Everyone is. Same goes for your banking needs. That's why Columbia Bank offers an impressive range of checking account solutions specifically designed for, well, you. Looking for high-yield interest account? Check. Rewards program? Check. Cash bonuses? Mobile and online banking? Apple Pay? Check. You'll always find more checking choices for you. So check us out at your local Columbia Bank branch or ColumbiaBankOnline.com. Count on Columbia.
Equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Say bye-bye to your baby's mouth pain. Highlands Baby Oral Pain Relief Tablets are here to help. A natural remedy to soothe, calm, and relieve your baby's oral discomfort. Happy baby, happy mama. Claims based on traditional homeopathic practice, not accepted medical evidence, not FDA evaluated.